It was a frigid winter evening when Pete and his new wife, Carla, first laid eyes on the secluded house. Newly married, this was their inaugural journey together, an escape from the relentless pace of the city, courtesy of Pete's uncle. The vacation home was imposing, a structure of aged timber and expansive windows that now reflected only the darkness of the surrounding night. Eerie shadows stretched from every corner, creating an atmosphere that was both thrilling and unsettling. Though a shiver of apprehension ran through them, their excitement for the adventure ahead was stronger. Pete's uncle, who resided nearby, met them with a brief tour. "This place has character," he explained, his voice echoing slightly in the empty rooms. "It's been in the family for ages. There are whispers of odd occurrences over the years, but they're just old wives' tales. Nothing to fret about." Carla offered a tight-lipped smile. His words, meant to be reassuring, only deepened the strange sensation that they were not entirely alone. After a simple dinner, they retired to their bedroom. An unnatural silence enveloped the house, broken only by the mournful sigh of the wind outside. In the deepest part of the night, Carla was jolted from sleep. A faint yet distinct sound pierced the quiet, a low, whispering voice calling her name. "Carla," it breathed. She shot up in bed, her eyes scanning the inky blackness. The room was empty, yet the echo of her name lingered in the air. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She lay back down, willing herself to relax, but the persistent sensation of being watched kept her rigid with fear. She considered waking Pete, but hesitated, not wanting to alarm him over what might be her imagination. She remained still, straining to hear, but the only sounds were the wind and the frantic beat of her own heart. The next morning, Pete inquired if she had rested well. Carla deflected his question, unwilling to sound foolish by mentioning the voice, yet it remained fixed in her thoughts. Later that day, driven by curiosity, Pete decided to investigate the house. He climbed the creaking wooden stairs to the attic, each step groaning under his weight. There he discovered a small, dust-laden box etched with peculiar symbols. Opening it, he found an old photograph of a woman standing before the very same house. She was smiling, but there was something profoundly wrong with the expression. It was unnaturally wide, as if it didn't belong on a human face. A cold dread washed over Pete. He swiftly returned the photo and snapped the box shut, eager to escape the attic's oppressive atmosphere. Descending, he found Carla looking pale and agitated, as if she'd witnessed something terrifying. "Are you all right?" he asked with concern. "I'm fine," she answered, too quickly, but her eyes betrayed her. She glanced towards a window, then back at him. "I keep hearing things, Pete. I think this house is haunted." Pete had never believed in such things, but the genuine fear in Carla's eyes made him question his own logic. An uneasy feeling began to gnaw at him as well. That night, as they lay in bed, the whisper returned. This time louder and more distinct. "Carla, Pete," it called. This time, Carla didn't hesitate. She bolted from the bed and ran for the door, a bewildered and frightened Pete right behind her. They rushed into the hallway, which seemed darker than before, with shadows writhing along the walls and the temperature dropping sharply. They stopped before the attic door at the corridor's end. It stood slightly ajar, and from within, the soft, beckoning voice drifted out. "Carla, Pete," it sang. Steeling themselves, they pushed the door open. What they saw froze them in place. Inside, a figure in a flowing white dress stood by the window. Her long, dark hair hung limply, and her face was pale and vacant as she stared motionless into the night. Carla gripped Pete's hand, her voice a trembling whisper. "You see her too?" Pete could only nod, his voice lost. The woman turned slowly to face them. The room plunged into an icy chill. She opened her mouth, but instead of a whisper, a piercing cry erupted, filling the house with an agony so profound it seemed to vibrate in their bones. It was a sound of pure sorrow and despair. Petrified, they fled, slamming and locking the attic door behind them. They stood trembling, trying to process the apparition they had just witnessed. The next day, a shaken Pete visited his uncle. "Do you know anything about a ghost in the attic?" he asked directly. His uncle's face registered surprise before he spoke slowly. "There's an old legend. Years ago, a woman lived here. She was awaiting her husband's return from America. He never came back. They say she perished from a broken heart right in this house. Ever since, some folks claim to have seen her spirit, forever watching from that window." Pete was stunned. "Why didn't you warn us?" he demanded. "I never believed it was anything but a story," the uncle replied softly. "But now, perhaps it's more." Though the voice didn't return, sleep was elusive. The house felt saturated, not with menace, but with an overwhelming melancholy. They knew they had witnessed something genuine, something that defied explanation. The following morning, Carla gazed up at the attic window. She wondered if the ghost was still there, watching the falling snow. Pete joined her. "Do you want to leave?" he asked gently. Carla considered it, then shook her head. "No, I want to help her." An unexpected connection had formed. She felt the ghost was pleading for release. They decided to uncover the woman's story. Delving into the house, they found an old, yellow diary in a forgotten drawer. It belonged to Catherine, the woman in the photograph. She had written of her husband, Walter, who had sailed to America for work, promising a swift return. The diary chronicled months, then years of waiting, her entries filled with fading hope and growing loneliness. "I still watch from the window every single day," one passage read. Carla's eyes welled with tears. "Her heart was just broken," she whispered. Pete held the diary. "Maybe that's why her spirit is trapped," he theorized. They spoke again to Pete's uncle, who confirmed Catherine's story, and then visited the local library. Searching old archives, they found a photograph of Walter, a kind-faced man. A brittle newspaper article revealed the tragic truth. Walter's ship had sunk, though his body was never recovered. Catherine, they realized, had likely clung to the hope that he was still alive, forever waiting. They returned home as dusk fell, the wind carrying a heavier air. They devised a plan to help Catherine find peace. That night, they ascended to the attic. Carla clutched the diary while Pete lit a single candle. Standing in the center of the room, Carla spoke with gentle sincerity. "Catherine, we know your story. "We are so sorry for your pain, but you aren't alone anymore. Walter loved you, and he wouldn't want you to suffer like this. We believe he is at peace now. You can rest too." The temperature plummeted, and a soft breeze, impossible with the closed windows, stirred the air. Catherine materialized once more, her eyes fixed on them with a sorrowful intensity. Silently, she extended a translucent hand. Carla stepped forward and placed the diary in her palm. Catherine looked down at it, and a single shimmering tear traced a path down her cheek. She clutched the book to her chest and closed her eyes. Then, slowly, she began to dissolve, fading into the warm light of the candle until nothing remained but the quiet night. Pete and Carla stood in awe. A profound peace settled over the house, a tranquility that had been absent since their arrival. The oppressive shadows were gone. The next morning, the house felt reborn. It was brighter, calmer, and the air was light. The feeling of being watched had vanished. In the attic, Catherine's photograph remained, but her smile now appeared gentle, almost human. The haunting was over. Peace had been found. They stayed for 2 more peaceful nights, even lighting a candle in the attic each evening as a silent thank you. Carla often paused by Catherine's window, contemplating the profound depths of love and loss. On their last morning, as they packed, Pete paused at the foot of the attic stairs. "It truly feels like she's at rest now," he said. Carla nodded in agreement. Before leaving, she placed a single fresh flower on the bottom step, a final silent farewell. They took one last look at the house. It no longer seemed dark and foreboding, but like a proper home, finally at ease. Driving away, the quiet road stretched before them. Hours later, they stopped at a small cafe to rest. As they sat by a crackling fire, Carla held Pete's hand. "Do you think there are more spirits like her?" she mused. "Maybe. Souls holding on with too much love, needing someone to simply listen and help them let go," Pete replied. He reached into his bag and pulled out the diary. "I brought this. Her story deserves to be remembered." Carla smiled warmly. Just then, an elderly man with a tired face entered and noticed the diary. "That book, I've seen it before," he said slowly, sitting down at their invitation. He explained that as a child, his mother had worked at that very house. "I knew Catherine. She was always at that window." He then revealed a final heartbreaking detail. Years later, a sick and aged man returned. It was Walter. He had survived, but came back too late. Catherine had already passed. He wept at her grave for hours and then vanished again. Pete and Carla were speechless, their hearts aching with the tragic irony. She never knew he came back. They thanked the man and continued their journey home. In their apartment, Carla placed the diary on a shelf, a permanent memorial. Sometimes, on quiet nights, she would open it and read a few passages, feeling a connection to Kathleen. Pete would sit with her, and they would talk about the old house, about love, about the pain of waiting, and the courage it takes to finally let go. The house remained, quiet and at peace. The spirit was gone, but the profound love that had once filled its rooms lived on, carried in their hearts, ensuring Catherine's story would never truly end.